Say hello to Lieutenant Colonel retired Tony Aguilar, who's a former Green Beret, Purple Heart recipient. He has served as a contractor for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and has since leaving employment there, and we'll discuss that. He is now essentially blowing the whistle on what has been happening there with the operations of the GHF in Gaza. And it has been something, I know, Tony, that has subjected you to a lot of personal attack, and you've certainly been out there publicly. And I just want to salute your bravery, not only in your service to the country in a formal manner, but your service to, as you've said, American values and really to the human interest by what you have done stepping forward. Could you tell folks a little bit about you, about your background, and what drew you to work in the first place for the efforts in Gaza?
Oh, well, to the previous speaker, I just wanted to say just thank you for everything that you described and what you laid out. I am in complete agreement, and the way you explained everything in terms of the humanitarian assistance, the humanitarian aid, the need for accountability, that's really kind of the message that I am also trying to convey through a different optic, through a different lens. But it's a very important message. I also, too, would like to see a diplomatic end to this, the release of hostages without conditions. I feel that from my experience in war, that we're at a point now, a precipice, that this must end diplomatically, that to end this militarily will not succeed, and it will only be bad for Israel as a nation state. It'll be bad for our allies. It'll be bad for the world. And it's time to realize that. As far as my background, I retired in March, 25 years of service. I did not have an intent to become a private contractor or an independent contractor or work in the industry. My intent was to be a retired, stay-at-home dad, husband, and make up for, 25 years of not being home, to focus on the family. And I got a call in May from UG Solutions, which is a subcontractor under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, to provide armed security for the distribution of humanitarian aid in what was conveyed to me to be the humanitarian assistance mechanism to replace that of the United Nations. And that's what I thought going in, that this mechanism was built and designed to replace that of the United Nations mechanism. Politically, in terms of what that meant overall, was really outside of my scope of responsibility. I felt that I could help. I felt that feeding the population, a starving population, an oppressed population, was something that didn't really have political lines. It's not red, it's not blue, it's not left, it's not right, it's not up, it's not down. It's humanity. And I wanted to be a part of that. I quickly learned within the first days, and then confirmed through the weeks that I was there. Every day from the 24th of May, I arrived into Israel on the 19th of May, and by the 24th of May was in Gaza and spent every day in Gaza until the 13th of June when I resigned and departed. And what I would say is that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, not naively or ignorantly, but deliberately and with full complicity, is a tool and mechanism of this starvation, this using food as a weapon, using food as a means of leverage and power, using starvation as a means of negotiation. When I first learned of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I didn't know much about them. And for anybody that has been looking into them, about 3 days ago, they finally created a website. They did not have one. I've been calling them out on that for a while. They have one now, so there's a little bit more transparency, or at least the facade of transparency. But it is absolutely, without a doubt, that food, aid, water, displacement, punishment of the population is absolutely being used as a tool of leverage and negotiation. That it's gotten to a point to where it's so bad that now we think that we've risen to a level of okay that we're doing airdrops. Airdrops achieve nothing. They're a gesture. They're a platitude. They do not achieve anything in terms of bringing food into the enclave. Neither does the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And the previous speaker brought up such a great point that I think is just so important for everyone to understand, is that when there was continuous aid going into the enclave daily, it was important to keep track of the number of trucks because that was the measure of performance in terms of how much aid we were bringing into the enclave on a sustained basis. Imagine, if you will, a grocery store that every Tuesday got its delivery to restock its shelves. And then for months, that stopped. Well, you can't then go back to the same model of distribution to that grocery store to what it once was. You have a deficit to then fill. And every day that goes by, that deficit that increases is resulting in the death of civilians. And again, is there justification for the war based on the atrocities of what was done on October 7th and before, quite frankly? Absolutely. But to then punish a population in whole through the deprivation of food and water and human dignity, that is not how democracies and world powers and great nations such as Israel and the United States engage in the world. That is not how we do things. And some people might say, well, it's war, there are no rules. And to that I say, shame on you. To that I say, you are wrong, and I will disagree with you on that until the day that I die. Because for 25 years in the Army, in the United States Army, deployed in 4 different wars, 12 combat deployments, a Purple Heart and Valor Awards for fighting in war, there are rules. Those rules are what maintain our dignity and our humanity, not as just a world society, but as nations. And not just because it's something nice to do, because human dignity is that is why we have the Geneva Conventions. And what I would like to remind everybody, or notify everybody of, if you don't know already, is that within the structure of international humanitarian law, the protocols of the Geneva Convention, which were updated in 1977 with the second protocols of the 4th ratification, specifically outline that you cannot, you will not, you shall not, it is prohibited to use food, water, aid sites, things that civilians need, the population, to destroy, control, or manipulate those sites or those areas or those services for the purpose of waging war against the enemy. It is forbidden. We cannot do it. We should not do it. There's a reason why that exists. So from my experience, there's plenty of times that I spoke out there in terms of the mechanics of the sites. And what I think is really more important to convey, and what I think is really important to understand, is that food, water, homes, places to live, churches, schools, hospitals, clinics are being destroyed and used as a tool of leverage. And it is not accidental. It is deliberate. If you look at the narrative of, at once there was pure ownership of this process, and then when the world turned and said, whoa, that looks pretty bad. Now there's the backpedaling of, oh, no, we're not doing that. But once you've committed to that path, there's no going back. The only way out of that path is accountability and to stop. And right now is the point to stop, accept accountability, be honest with ourselves. The discussion should now no longer be if there's starvation in Gaza, if there is total annihilation of Gaza. Let's accept that as a fact. Let's accept that as the reality. And the discussion should now move on as a world society of allied nations as to what we're going to do about it. Not what it is. I think the world can now see what it is. For anybody that didn't think that Gaza, and again, I didn't just see Gaza from above in an aircraft. I didn't see it from outside the gate, from afar. I didn't see it on a TV or in a newspaper. I was there. The smell of death, the looking at people that are dying of starvation, seeing children that have been killed or died. It's not some conspiracy. It's not some propaganda hoax that's being this cloak and dagger of what it is. Real. It is absolutely real. And what I would ask is that if you can't take it from the surgeons and the UN workers and the people that have been there for a lot longer than me that have been saying it, and that my voice is now adding to that, it is real. And we are complicit. And it needs to end. And again, I believe that Israel is a great nation. I believe the United States is a great nation. I believe that we as leaders in the world are great nations. And great nations don't do this. Great nations take accountability and don't do this. It needs to end. The war needs to end with a diplomatic solution, because if Israel thinks that the occupation or the further annihilation of the territory is going to lead some kind of lasting settlement, it will not. And it will bring Israel into a state of war that it will not survive. Israel will not survive this war if it continues down this path. It will not survive diplomatically. It will not survive as a military. It will not survive as a nation state, because this war can drag it into a position to where Israel could become a pariah state, a rogue nation, and nobody wants that.
Well, Tony, I just want to say thank you. I've watched a few of your clips on PBS and talking with Senator Chris Van Hollen and a few other of your appearances. And, I've sensed the deep, deep personal emotion that you bring to this. And it clearly taps into, and you've talked about this, what your values are as a human being, but as an American, as somebody who has served this country. And I think I just want to add from the J Street perspective, that we are bringing into this conversation a sense of Jewish values. What is our morality as a people? The state of Israel is the national homeland of the Jewish people, and in our view, the state of the Jewish people has to uphold the highest of the values of the Jewish people. And what is happening for us is not in accord with our values. And the silence of leaders in our community about what is happening, to our mind, we have said very clearly that silence is complicity. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of the community that we represent for the passion and the values that you are bringing to this. And I wanted to just give you a chance to talk a little bit about, specifically those values and what, you were there for a few weeks and it just was so overwhelming that you just had to leave and speak out about it. And what motivates you to do that at a personal level? I mean, how did you get to that point in given what you have done and given where you've been in your career and what you've seen, that this period of time brought you to feel so passionately the need to speak out?
When I first got into Gaza, again, believing in the mission, believing in the purpose in what we were attempting to achieve, initial indications were that maybe this is just ignorance and naivete, and that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation got involved in something that's a lot more. They bit off more than they can chew, and things will progress towards achieving what the stated goal is of delivering humanitarian assistance, not just dried food goods, but humanitarian assistance at scale into the enclave. The more and more I started to realize that that is not the objective, that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has no intent to do that. They have no intent to alleviate the starvation and the precipice of famine. They have no intent to achieve conditions that are then conducive to a diplomatic end. They are deliberate in their position and what they are doing, in being an appendage to bring further suffering to the population of Gaza. And it is so clear. It is so evident. And when it became clear and it became evident to me, and again, staying as long as I did, I wanted to quit every day, not because of the overwhelming stress of war. I've been there. I've done it. I was I wouldn't say I was inoculated to it, but it wasn't something that I wasn't
25 years, 25 years of service.
4 wars. I've been a lot of places, and it wasn't something in that sense. It was the sense that I was a part of I was a part of an organization that's part of the problem. And unless someone speaks out, that's there, that saw it, that witnessed it, that understands the nature of this, the nuance level and the nature of what this really is, no one's going to know, and 2, no one's ever going to believe it. I mean, it's just it appalls me that in one statement or in one appearance of GHF leadership, they can say how things are great, we're doing awesome, but then in the next piece they say, oh well, it's not our fault that it's failing, we need help. It's like, well, this doublespeak, this cloak and dagger, and using taxpayers' dollars, Israeli money and U.S. money, taxpayers, and using that in this is disingenuous, and in my opinion, it's unethical, and I would go to the length of saying that it's criminal, and it needs to be addressed. And that's why I left, not because I quote unquote necessarily couldn't take it anymore. I wouldn't I wouldn't take it anymore. And I realized that speaking out against this is the only way.
Well, let me ask you to comment a little bit about the violence that I know many of us are just so deeply distraught about reading about. I mean, you witnessed firsthand the violence around these distribution centers, and we're reading that it might be IDF soldiers that are firing. It might be the contractors themselves that are affiliated with GHF. It might be criminal gangs. It might be Hamas. I mean, there's just a whole range of armed actors in this area. The bottom line is that it does appear that hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent people have been killed and injured in the in and out from these sites. What was your personal experience during the time that you were there about the source of the violence? And what I've seen some footage, but others haven't. If you could describe what it is that you saw.
So the lack of leadership and the lack of leadership on the ground and clear rules of engagement and clear rules of escalation of force, things that are required in situations such as this, were never dictated and never present and never laid out. So you have this situation of almost like a Lord of the Flies type of situation where no one's in charge. And in a situation like this, you need someone in charge. So is it true that in the environment that there are armed actors, many, the IDF, UG Solutions, Hamas, militias, gangs, bandits? Sure, absolutely. I've never said different. Tony Aguilar, in all the time that I was there, not once ever saw an armed Palestinian. Not once near or on or at the sites saw anyone returning fire to a site, being threatening or bringing violence to a site, or in any way ever appeared to be threatening in any way whatsoever. And I was at all 4 sites. I didn't just do one, I went to all 4. And I went to all 4 to sometimes I was at different sites multiple times, multiple days. A lot of time on the sites, never saw it once. I didn't just sit in the control room in Karim Shalom. I didn't just sit in a truck. I was there on the ground, face to face with it. Never experienced that. Not to say that it's not there. I never saw it. The only times that I ever saw shooting that led to injury and death was either by UG Solutions contractors in the unnecessary, overwhelming use of force, and by the IDF in shooting in what they would describe as warning shots or communication by gunfire. And to be honest, I don't know what I would do in terms of the situation that they're in, because it is an untenable, unrealistic dilemma. What I would do, the GHF leadership should be on the line. The sites should have never been built where they are. You don't put secure distribution sites to deliver humanitarian aid to service an unarmed civilian population with civil service in the middle of an active combat zone in the areas that they're built. There were so many different options on where these sites could have been built, which is why it became apparent to me that this is intentional. This was done intentionally. The design of the sites, where the sites are, how the sites operate. It's not an accident. It's not the fog and friction of war. It is deliberate. So
just to clarify, the sites, for people who don't know the geography well, the sites are built within the areas of the Gaza Strip that are under the military control of the IDF. So you have to cross a security checkpoint in order to get into the area where the sites have been built.
To get into sites 1, 2, and 3, you have to. You cannot not do it. You have to cross into and then cross south of the Marag corridor, which then takes you into the operational engagement area, the combat zone of Operation Gideon's Chariots, which has been going on since March. It recently ended. It culminated about a week ago before the talk came of the total occupation. So to build the sites where they are was deliberate, it was preventable, and it was done intentionally. It was done on purpose. That's what gets me to the point to where it's undeniable that this isn't deliberate. It's not an accident. Under the UN, there were 400 sites. Right. Some of those sites with food kitchens and operations set up could have been reutilized in the areas that they're in. No, GHF built their own in areas that are completely unserviceable to the Palestinians. They have to travel great distance, and when they get there, they have to cross into a militarized zone. Imagine if during the invasion of Iraq in Baghdad, when people fled to the north from Baghdad during the invasion, if during the invasion we put an indisplaced persons refugee corridor right through the middle of Baghdad. It'd be preposterous. That's what this is. The sites should have been built. So the situation that the Israelis, the IDF, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, UGS Solutions contractors find themselves in shouldn't even be a situation. It's regardless of what's happening and how it's being done, which is also wrong. We should never have been in this situation. It was preventable. In fact, not only was it preventable, we shouldn't have done it this way.
And again, I think folks probably are just trying to imagine this in their mind. I just want to paint this picture that you've got a population of 2 million people that have been squeezed into three basic areas of the Gaza Strip that amount to somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15% of the available land. The other 85% or so is under Israeli control. And then you've got 4 distribution sites serving 2 million people. So tens of thousands of usually more able-bodied younger men are being sent by their families to descend on these 4 sites at the hours when there's suddenly a notice on WhatsApp or whatever that it's going to be open. There's a scramble, a mad dash, because people are absolutely starving, and it's a sort of survival of the fittest, Lord of the Flies type of situation. Yes. And as I understand it, whatever the amounts of boxes are that are there for distribution, they're gone in like 7 to 11 minutes.
That is correct.
It's like, if you had a visual overhead of thousands of people descending and running and racing and grabbing, and it's all gone in 7 to 11
Imagine minutes. If you had the entire population of the New York City Marathon lined up at the starting line, and instead of starting in phase hour or 30-minute increments of moving, the whole thing started at one time. One shotgun start, the whole group of tens of thousands, and they were all going into a Walmart.
Right, and desperate and hungry to feed their family.
Desperate, hungry, fighting for survival. Most of which are in varying states of starvation.
And so you're bound to get a sense of violence and fear there, and you
absolutely
have a handful of armed people faced with this. It's a formula.
I would say that the violence, the chaos, the absolute deprivation of human dignity is baked into the process. It's deliberate. It's baked into how this process was designed. And I think that GHF leadership should be accountable.
Tony, we have about 5 minutes left in the conversation, and I do think it's important to flag, and I apologize for raising this, but I think it's important for you to address it and give folks your response. The GHF, in response to your allegations, has made the claim back that, as many employers do when faced with a whistleblower coming out and revealing what they've seen, they say that you are a disgruntled employee who was dismissed for non-performance, and that the charges you're now making are part of a retaliatory attack on them for having let you go. So I just want to give you a chance to address the charges that have been made against you.
You know who says the same thing about people that leave the country and tell other people about the atrocities that are happening? Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. So yeah, that GHF is amongst that population. It is war criminal tyranny 101. Every person that came out before me anonymously, that is the exact same narrative that the GHF put out immediately. Disgruntled employee that we fired. Disgruntled employee that we fired. Disgruntled employee that we fired. Now that I came out on the record, they can put all that on me. And that's fine, because there are people behind me that are coming with the truth. I know this. The day of reckoning on the truth of what's going on by not just me, but others is coming. And when they come and that truth comes out, they've already put all the bad employee, this and that on me. Fine. Me being a bad employee doesn't change the nature of what's happening. Okay. I resigned. But if GHF wants to say they terminated me and I was the worst employee ever, okay, fine. You hired me. I was there. The videos and the pictures speak for themselves. So go ahead and call me whatever you want. I don't care. In fact, the amount that they push back and yet choose to attack me instead of addressing one single substantial salient point, not even one, and they choose to use their energy on attacking me, that should be a clear indication to everyone And some of the things that they accuse me of and some of the things they say are laughable. You know, that I'm being funded by Hamas. I will tell everybody, I have no PR support. I have no PR firm. I have no lawyers. I have no social media crew. I have no media relations team. I have no team at all. It's me. It's me and the truth. That's it. I have nothing. I mean, up until yesterday, I didn't even have a social media account that I stood up so I could do a X-hosted Twitter podcast thing, whatever you call it. And then I got rid of the account because I don't have social media. So I'm not out here for clicks, likes, and support. I'm out here for the truth. And if you believe the truth, do something about it. If you don't believe it, fine. I mean, I can't convince you otherwise. But I would ask, if you haven't been to Gaza and you're running your mouth as to what I have seen, I think that's pretty disingenuous.
One of the things I'll just add into the mix for folks is J Street works very closely with an organization called Breaking the Silence in Israel, which is an organization of folks who have served in the IDF. And then when they come out of the IDF, they tell their stories about what it was that they did. And we've focused a lot of our work on the West Bank and particularly around the occupation of the city of Hebron. But I know that Breaking the Silence is collecting testimonies now
Oh,
of
yeah.
soldiers coming out of Gaza. And it has not yet been published, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But I do know that there are hundreds and hundreds of IDF soldiers that are telling their stories about what it is that they are seeing from the IDF side of this equation. I mean, you're telling
Yes.
a story from
And
the
so when you take my perspective that has come through in video, pictures, and eyewitness and other testimony, I'm not the only contractor that's come out. There are about a dozen more that are already in the process where more will come out soon. These take time.
right.
And when it does, and you have the story from the IDF, and you have the story from inside the sites from the contractors, and you have the story from the Palestinians that have been eating the hardship of this, and that all comes together, that's called the truth. And GHF cannot hide from it.
And I will also say, one of the things that is an indicator of the trauma of all of this in the service of the people who were there is the level of suicide of IDF
Yes,
soldiers, the level of PTSD that is being reported, and a lot of the issues, mental health wise, are from what the units that people served in were doing.
it is
And
hard to live with oneself,
right.
regardless if it was your fault or you did it intentionally or didn't do it intentionally or just witnessed it. It is heart wrenching. It rips your heart out. I
And
mean,
that
it's
is
still to
why.
see women and children that are starving or that are blown to pieces or shot and dead. I mean, it doesn't matter if seeing that and being surrounded by that rips your heart out. And for those that think that it's something you can ignore, and I know the GHF UG Solutions contractors, when they come home and they're no longer in this vacuum in this vacuum chamber, and they have to face their wives and their children and look at themselves in the mirror, more will come out. I am confident of it. That's why the insults and the smearing doesn't bother me at all, because the day of truth is coming. And I will be on the right side of history. And I ask anyone who wants to be on the right side of history, let's join hands and fake this goal. Let's fix this.
Well, thank you very much to Lieutenant Colonel Aguilar and Tony, if I may. We are just very, very grateful for your service to our country and for your service to our values and the truth in coming out and saying all this. I want to urge folks to join J Street's call on the Jewish communal leadership to speak out more for our morals. We're going to put a link into the chat for the Substack that I write and Elon Goldenberg writes, where we've taken on a lot of these moral issues related to Gaza. Please subscribe to that, join J Street, support our petitions, help us in pressuring members of Congress and senators. I know Chris Van Hollen gave a platform to Tony for his testimony, and we're grateful for the leadership of a number of folks in the Senate and the House and trying to bring
I'll
these
be
issues.
back up in DC in early September, sir. Doing similar to the same the House and the Senate are on recess, but I'll be
Right.
back up in the first week of September, and I think we're really gonna continue to gain traction on seeing results.
Exactly. And I think we're helping you set up some of those meetings, and
Yes,
very pleased
yes,
to work together
yes.
with you.
I'm
And
honored. It is an honor.
thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you in person when you're up here. And thank everybody who's been with us. And we will be posting this on our various social media outlets. Even if Tony can't access those, we will be posting them.
Someone send me a link.
Exactly.
My mom will watch it and send it to me.
There you go.
She's on social media.
All right. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.